September 28, 2014, from TCF Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It was the Atlanta Falcons at the Minnesota Vikings. Atlanta won the toss and they elected to receive, but they would go 3 and out, so they punted the ball to Minnesota, who took over on their own 27-yard line with about 14 minutes left in the quarter. They would go the length of the field, 73 yards in 8 plays in about 4.5 minutes, capped off by a 3-yard run from Matt Asiata as he scored the touchdown to put the Vikings up 7-0 over Atlanta. So now the Falcons got the ball and they started their drive on their own 20 with about 9.5 minutes left in the first quarter. And they drove 80 yards in 11 plays in about 5.5 minutes, capped off by a 24-yard touchdown pass from Matt Ryan to Roddy White to tie this game up at 7 apiece. So the score was tied at 7-7 between Atlanta and Minnesota. So the Vikings took over, and they would actually run the kickoff back 49 yards. Cordero Patterson got all the way to the Minnesota 47 as he had fielded it 2 yards in his own end zone. So off of that 49-yard kick return, they had a short field, and they made short work of that short field as they went 53 yards in 5 plays in about 2.5 minutes, capped off by a 6-yard touchdown run by Matt Asiata as the Vikings once again took the lead by a touchdown with the score now 14-7 over Atlanta. So the Falcons took over with about a minute and a half left in the first quarter, and they brought the quarter to a close, and they opened up the second quarter on their own 31-yard line. They would make it to midfield, but then their drive stalled, and they would end up punting the ball, and Minnesota got it, and they were backed up against their own end zone on their own 8-yard line. But then on first down and 10 from their own 8, McKinnon ran the ball 55 yards all the way across midfield and into Atlanta territory, all the way to the Atlanta 37. They would end up attempting a field goal 4 plays later, a 49-yard field goal as Blair Walsh came into the game, but it was wide right, so it was no good, and the score remained 14-7. So now the Falcons took over on their own 39-yard line with about 11.5 minutes left before halftime. They drove all the way down to the Minnesota 1-yard line, and then Matt Ryan threw a touchdown to DiMarco, and now the game was tied up at 14 points apiece. Minnesota would then take over on their own 20 with about 6 minutes left before halftime. They would end up going 80 yards in 9 plays in about 4 minutes as Teddy Bridgewater took it in himself as he scrambled around the left side and he went in 13 yards for the touchdown, and it was now 21-14 as the Vikings took the lead once again by a touchdown. So now with about 2 minutes left before halftime, the Falcons got the ball and they went 3 and out and they punted it in about 30 seconds. So Minnesota now took over on their own 15-yard line with about a minute 25 left before halftime. They would march all the way down the field. Some big plays as Bridgewater connected with McKinnon for 17 yards. And then the next play, he connected with Wright for 25 yards. That was on the 5th and 6th play of the drive. And then on the next play, a 17-yard pass to Ford would make it 1st and goal on the 7-yard line. Then McKinnon ran 7 yards for the touchdown, but the play was reversed, so it would be 2nd and goal on the 1. They had an incomplete pass, but then on 3rd and goal from the 1, with just 5 seconds remaining, they would have to go for the field goal as there wasn't enough time on the clock. They wouldn't be able to stop the clock if they had chosen to go for it. So Blair Walsh came in, he kicked the 18-yard field goal, and the score was now 24-14 as this game went to halftime. So the Minnesota Vikings were ahead of the Falcons by 10 points coming out of the halftime, and they had the ball first, and they would score a field goal on their first drive of the second half as Blair Walsh kicked the 41-yard field goal to make it 27-14 as they now extended their lead to 13 points. The Falcons took over with less than 11 minutes left in the third, and they made short work of the field as they went 80 yards in 7 plays in about 3 minutes as Matt Ryan hit Devin Hester for a 36-yard touchdown. And it was now a 6-point game with the score 27-21 with the Vikings in the lead over the Falcons. The Vikings now would take over on their own 20 with about 7 minutes left in the quarter. But they would end up having to punt the ball when they made it to about midfield, but they couldn't get any further. So now Atlanta had the ball with about 3 minutes left before the end of the third quarter. And in 4 plays, they went 63 yards, taking up just over a minute. Is Smith ran 48 yards for the touchdown. As he had a huge run there that made it now 28-27. As the Falcons were in the lead for the first point in this game, as they led by 1 point over Minnesota. The Vikings took over with about a minute and 30 left in the quarter, but they wouldn't run it out, as they would end up going 3 and out. And so the Falcons got the ball back and brought the quarter to a close. They also went 3 and out, and on the second play of the second quarter, they punted the ball. So now the Vikings had the ball on their own 22, and they would end up going 78 yards in 9 plays in about 4 minutes, capped off by a 1-yard touchdown run from Matt Asiata. He scored his 3rd touchdown of the game, and that made the score 35-28. As they went for the 2-point conversion, and it was successful as Bridgewater connected with Ellison. So it was now 35-28 as the Vikings were once again in the lead, and now they were up by 7 points. So the Falcons now had the ball with less than 11 minutes left on the game clock, but they would end up punting. And Minnesota got the ball, and it was now 6.5 minutes left, and they had the ball on their own 45 near midfield. They crossed midfield with a 14-yard run on first down from McKinnon, and then a few plays later, they would end up having to settle for a field goal as Blair Walsh came out to attempt the 55-yarder. It was good, and that made the score 38-28 as they extended their lead to 10 points. So now the Falcons took over with about 3.5 minutes left in this game, and they needed to score twice. But on the second play of the drive, and of the possession really, Matt Ryan dropped back to pass, and he was intercepted by Smith, and Smith got the ball back for the Vikings. That all about did it, but the Vikings weren't done scoring just yet, as they had the ball already in field goal range. They brought it up into the red zone, but they couldn't get into the end zone, so Blair Walsh came out and kicked the 33-yarder to make it 41-28. The Falcons got the ball back, and on the final play, Matt Ryan threw one last interception, and this game came to a close as the Minnesota Vikings beat the Atlanta Falcons 41-28, and they've now evened up their record at 2-2, as they're tied with the Bears and the Packers in their division for second place, with the Lions in first at 3-1, and the Falcons are also now at 2-2 after having lost this game. And in this game, Teddy Bridgewater was 19 for 30 with 317 passing yards. He also rushed for 27 yards off of 5 carries and ran for a touchdown. Matt Ryan was 25 for 41 with 298 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. The leading rusher in this game was McKinnon with 135 yards off of 18 carries, although Matt Asiata had 78 yards off of 20 carries and 3 touchdowns. So altogether, the Vikings rushed for 4 touchdowns. Bridgewater had a rushing touchdown as well. The leading receiver in this game was Wright, as he had 132 yards off of 8 receptions, although Jarius Wright did not get a touchdown, as they did not score a touchdown through the air for the Vikings, that is. Although Roddy White and Devin Hester and DiMarco all got touchdowns receiving for the Falcons. But Smith and Robinson both got picks in this game. Harrison Smith and Josh Robinson. And Cordero Patterson had 86 return yards to go along with 38 yards receiving. So the Vikings win this game 41-28 over the Falcons, as both of these teams are now 2-2.